gardening at Douentza here in Ireland, and this video here is about propagating Hippeastrum bulbs. Beside me here we have my Hippeastrum papilio, which is a glorious, gorgeous plant which I have grown for many years and has always rewarded me with beautiful flowers. Now, this method of propagation is really quite radical because in order to propagate the plant, what you need to do is destroy the parent bulb completely. And in so doing, you get lots and lots of baby plants. So it's something that you're going to do for a very special bulb that you want to have lots of, and that you're prepared to wait a little while until it matures and get to flowering size again. So I guess we're going to make a mess. We're going to go outside. There'll be lots of cutting, there'll be lots of breaking and all that kind of messy stuff. So I think we're going to take this show to the garden. And you are very welcome to my garden where I've taken this messy task. And before we start propagating my Hippeastrum bulb, I'm just going to put on a pair of gloves because we're going to cut this bulb up into small pieces, and that means it's going to be open to infection. So we're going to try and minimize the opportunity or the possibility of that happening. Now, first of all, little spoiler here, or I'm not actually going to cut up my Hippeastrum papilio because I'm not prepared to wait that length of time to have one in flower again. What we're actually going to do is to cut up this Hippeastrum or amaryllis bulb, and this is one that I bought last year. Now, so when to do this job, and what you need to do is to wait till the bulb goes dormant. And that's best done, I suppose, in autumn, but I'm doing this in January now, so it's a bit late in the day, but we're going to give it a try anyway. And the first thing we're going to do is take this Hippeastrum out of its pot. And as you can see, it's already producing a little baby side bulb, but we are going to get it to produce lots and lots and lots of side bulbs. Now, the first thing we're going to do is remove all the soil. And just a little word to the wise, you need a reasonably large sized Hippeastrum bulb to do this with. It's no good using, for example, a baby like we have there. It's not going to work. So as you can see, I'm removing the soil, and I'm not worrying about the roots because I'm actually going to cut those off in just a minute now. And then the next thing, with the sterilised scissors, I'm just going to cut the roots off, but not of the baby. So actually I'll just remove this little baby here now with its own roots, and we'll pot that up separately. Put that down here. But for this one that I'm going to cut up and destroy, I'm going to take off the roots. Now, what I'm also going to do is to, first of all, press the bulb to make sure it's quite firm. And there was some kind of damage here, or semi-rotting at some stage, but it seems firm now, so I think this is okay to proceed. I'm taking off the outer sheaths, I suppose, the outer scales. This. And the most important thing is not to damage this basal plate, which is the bit at the base of the bulb, because that's where the genetic material is held, the material that is going to trigger the regrowth of baby plants that are identical to the parent. Now, I'm just looking here and making sure I remove all of this bit here, because we did have some rotting here at some stage, I reckon. But as you can see, when I remove it, the bulb is actually quite solid and firm underneath, so that's a good sign. And I think this is as clean as I can get this Hippeastrum bulb. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut off the top bit here, and with this sterilized knife we're just going to cut across like this, nice and sharp. Okay, now what we're going to do is the scary bit. What we're actually going to do is we're going to cut through the basal plate like that. Now there are various ways to do this. If you read up about it, you will find that some people will cut from the top, some people will cut the whole thing in quarters and put them up separately in the same way that you might propagate an insetted banana. But the method we're going to do is to cut from the base, and we're going to cut the basal plate in 4 pieces. You can cut it in more than 4 pieces also, and then of course you get more little plants, but I think I should have enough, and just from this. Now I'm not going to cut all the way down, I'm just going to cut just, you see there, just to where it starts going into the skin of the bulb, and just a little bit deeper maybe. Okay, I think that's enough. So I've just cut into these scales here, all the way through the basal plate and into the scales. And now I'm going to cut here. And I think that's deep enough. That was a bit deeper than last time, look. So we've gone in here. Okay. Now I've read that what happens is that this will tend to re-knit. So these pieces here will tend to grow into each other unless we do something about it. And we don't want that to happen, because then the plant won't produce babies. So, I mean, actually, isn't the botanic world an amazing thing, that I could do such horrible damage to this bulb and yet it should still try and regrow. So what I'm going to do is to put something in here. Now some reports say that you can put a matchstick down there. Not matchstick, toothpick. But I don't like that idea because there's a chance of rotting with wood. So what I've done is I've got this stuff here. Now this is actually plastic, and it's used for tying trees. And plastic has the advantage of being quite clean and not rotting. So I'm just going to cut 2 lengths like this with my tree tie plastic. If you have a metal stake, you can alternatively use that. Again, metal will rust over time, but probably not before your bulb starts producing its babies. Now I'm going to just prise open where I've cut it a little bit and force, it's difficult to have enough hands, force this plastic down there like that. There. Okay, so that's the first bit in, and then likewise with the other cut that I made, which is tricky, trickier than you think. Now I guess the plastic has the disadvantage of not being as rigid as metal or toothpicks, so there is a chance that over time the plastic may kind of compress and the bulb may somehow manage to join up again. So maybe I'll put another few bits in there. So let's just put that down for a minute. And here we're putting a second bit of plastic down here and across here, just to make sure it's leveraged open. And you can see there how there is space between the 4 chambers in the basal plate now. Now this Hippeastrum, because I've cut it, is very open to infection. So what we're going to do is apply some fungicide, and this is the one that I used last time when I propagated the Douentza banana, so we will use it again. And I'll just give it a good shake like that and follow the manufacturer's instructions, which is to make it up with water. So using 15 ml of this in a litre of water. And here we have already measured a litre of water, and I just have to find the 15 ml, which is round about there. So okay, so we're going to put that in here and give it a bit of a stir with a stick. Actually, I don't have a stick. We're going to give it a bit of a stir with the old knife. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my cut Hippeastrum bulb in there to soak for a while, I guess about half an hour, and we will just pop it down there. Oh, it wants to float. And we will come back in half an hour. Okay, so it's half an hour later. I've had a cup of tea, and now I'm back to get on with this Hippeastrum division, propagation chipping. Okay, so how did it do? So it's now time to rescue my Hippeastrum from the fungicide, and here it is. And now we're going to pot this up. And so what we're going to need is a pot, which I've actually washed out and sterilised just with some boiling water. I'm going to put a piece of paper at the bottom of my pot, and this will just stop the perlite from falling out. And the ingredient I'm going to use to put in the pot is perlite, which is a naturally occurring volcanic ingredient that really has magic qualities. So it makes sure that the plant has the required amount of moisture but still provides good drainage, which is really a magic quality. So I've put the perlite in there, and now I'm going to place my bulb in. Now what we're going to do is put the basal plate downwards. We're planting the bulb in the same way, with the same way up that it was originally planted, and we just place it in like that. And now I'm going to put some more perlite around the bulb. Now I'm not going to cover it. She says covering it. What we're going to do is ensure that the top bit is not covered. Now we're going to water this, and I am going to put this now just on the table and water it with the fungicide that I've already prepared. So and allowing to drain what will drain. This fungicide isn't going to be used for anything else, so we just need to make sure that the plant has adequate hydration to get going and start producing those babies. And now we've got, as you can see, the fungicide is dripping out over the bottom, but that's okay. And I'm just letting this drip a bit to make sure that any excess liquid is drained off the plant. Now the next step is important, because when I made my last video about propagating Douentza, it's the point that I got asked the most questions about. I put it in a transparent box, and this here is my transparent box. And if you don't have a transparent box like this, you can use a plastic bag just over the top of the pot and down below the pot, and this is quite important. Now my transparent box has a lid which goes on top like that, and it seals, and as you can see, like a plastic bag, it lets light in. Now the thing about a transparent box or a plastic bag is that it's a closed system. So any water that you've put on your plant when it went into the box or into the bag is going to stay there forever. So if you've got the watering right at the beginning, you're not going to have to water again until the point in time when you remove the lid, and then of course the plant is open to the air and you will need to water it in the normal way that you would another plant. Now a closed system of course is a great method to get propagated plants going or seedlings going, because they need a lot of moisture to actually get them, to trigger them into growth. What you may find, however, is that you've overwatered in the initial phase. I may have put a bit too much water on there. So for the first day or two, keep a close eye on your propagated plant in the closed system, and if you find that there's a lot of water droplets on the lid or on the surface of the plastic bag, then you may judge that you put too much water on, in which case you'll remove the lid for a couple of hours, let it dry out just a little bit, and then close the lid again. It's important to make sure that your plant is kept moist but not soggy. And I'll be keeping my transparent box in the house where it's nice and warm, because Hippeastrum do like warm temperatures, and on a heat mat for the time being. And that brings me to the end of my video on propagating Hippeastrum bulbs, or chipping, which is the technical term for it, which I hope you'll find useful, and perhaps you'll use this method to propagate one of your prized bulbs. Check back in 3 months' time when we should expect to see some growth from my propagated bulb in the form of little baby plants that are going to come up, and then I'll probably make a third follow-on video at some stage in the future to show when I take those little bulbs off and pot them up on their own. So if you're watching this video in the future, do check at the very end, because I will link to those follow-up videos for everyone to chart the progress. Okay, thanks very much for watching, and yeah, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and keep those things growing. Bye.